Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Skylar Thomas with Jack Gescheit of the Tree Spirit Project. We got a full show for you today.
It's going to go by quickly, folks. We have manure to dip into. Speaking of which, who is that?
That is a massive amount of shit on the land, and there's also a truck delivering manure.
Very good. So that is a ranch family attorney who's been laying it on thick recently, and we're going to get into that today. I'm excited to do this because it just makes me crazy. Makes me crazy. Morning,
Three
everyone.
main things to do today. I have a minute and a half video that we'll shoot through, but it really helps put into perspective why this whole regenerative and grass-fed thing is so absurd, and it does it quickly. And it's one of the reasons that we spend the time making fun of these regenerative propaganda videos coming out. And we're going to finish part 2 of that at the end of today's show, part 2 of Hooves on the Ground, Wings in the Sky, the absolute piece of trash that Audubon Society sponsored, sadly enough. And California Wildlife Conservation has their name on the screen at the end during the credits. But burning in Jack's mind and mine is Andrew Giacomini. And next week, please remind me, next week I'm going to read the land holdings and wealth of the Giacomini Empire, which is so crazy, people will accuse me of lying. You're not going to believe it.
Wow. Well, good. Thank you for the research you're obviously doing. I don't know the extent of their holdings. I've met the man. I used to live in the same town, just a mile up the road from him, and he was working for some nonprofit Marin legal services, legal defense, where they. I mean, he did good things, was doing good things. So for me, this is so strange to see this guy just go way overboard with claims that are just demonstrably false, and it's such slanted. He doesn't. We're going to be showing you an interview that Skylar found on this. It's actually a right-wing media platform. The show is called California Insider, but there's a bug on the screen on some of it too. It's put out by Epoch News, Epoch Epoch News, which is the Chinese-owned media conglomerate that does a lot of the conspiracy theory stuff and donates to the Trump campaign, which they have a right to do. But it is very one-sided. And this is a great example. He's just giving him a microphone and he says all this stuff. There's no counterpoint. There's no challenge. It's a completely softball-friendly interview. I mean, the worst kind. And that's why we're here. Oh, and the last thing I'd say is we will continually be going back and forth between the macro, which is regenerative ranching and the nonsense that is, and then the micro, which is in our neck of the woods in Marin County, is Point Reyes National Seashore, because in effect it's a microcosm of the regenerative ranching. They don't use the word regenerative as much at Point Reyes. They talk about small family.
This is super weird. There's more than 8 billion.
I apologize. That's just the way it is now until we get a better platform.
It's all right.
I paused it. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No worries. Well, thank you. No worries. I'm from New York. I can talk over him. So Point Reyes doesn't use the word regenerative. They focus on small family-owned farmers, hardworking stewards of the land, which we're constantly saying, and we will continue, as I want to advocate to do, saying this stuff and outing it, because we're fighting a PR machine that pushes all this stuff as, we need to heal the land by stewarding it with cows, which is throwing more gasoline on the fire. It's proposing the disease to be used as the cure.
Good morning, by the way, to Sledge, to Paula. We have other viewers, but you haven't said hello yet in the chat. Please do so. Please let us know as the show goes on which pieces stood out to you that you found rather, I don't know if alarming is the right word, but made you kind of think about things differently. This is the short that I found, and I am going to play it. Fucking gotta be kidding.
So Skyward is messing with the Restream platform. It's been good, but things change around and he can't line up a whole bunch of shows. So that's what I'm here to do, a song and dance to delay for a few seconds while he gets things queued up.
Well, it was nice enough to tell me an unexpected error. I guess it's supposed to make me feel better that it was unexpected.
This is super weird. There's more than 8 billion humans, but we only take up this tiny sliver of Earth's habitable land. But cows, we've basically given them their own continent. Let me explain. For starters, 71% of Earth's surface is oceans, leaving 29% for land. Of that land area, about this much is frozen and this much is barren, like deserts. About 3/4 of Earth's land is habitable. Of all that habitable land, people only fill about 1 to 2% of it. A tiny bit is lakes and rivers, and about half is forests and shrubby areas. All the rest of the habitable land, it's used to grow food. About this much of that agricultural land grows stuff that humans eat directly. And this tiny sliver grows stuff that isn't for eating at all. All the rest of this, it's for livestock, like cows. Bessie and her other barnyard buddies take up a hefty 38 million square kilometers of land through grazing and crops that we grow to feed livestock. That's more than a third of all habitable land. In other words, the land area that we use to grow animals like cows, it's bigger than Africa. So cows basically have their own continent. And all those burgers come with a cost. Even though livestock takes up most of our farmland, that meat provides just about 1/5 of the world's calories. That's not the most efficient use of Earth's limited agricultural real estate. And yet humans are eating more meat every year, which requires more land, leaving less space for wildlife. Cows alone make up 10 times the biomass of all wild mammals. We devote a continent's worth of Earth to livestock and only a sliver to wildlife. What is this? Planet of the cows?
There's a lot in there. That's a good short.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, let's understand. And hi, Susan. I say hello from Susan. Let's understand 50% is being used to grow food for cows. Like, they didn't even talk about the grazing land where they are actively feeding. The rest of it is used to grow food for cows. We're at 50% now of habitable land being used for that, which only produces 1/5 of our caloric intake, food-wise. And people are proposing that the solution is to give more land to cows. That, to me, tells you how ridiculous the grass-fed movement and the hooves on the ground shit that we've been watching is. Like, we are going the wrong direction. We went the wrong direction. It is already planet of the cows. And the proposal is give more of the planet to cows.
Very well put. And in addition to that, then the lie is to push that propaganda. They say, well, the land is damaged and needs to be restored. And the way we do that is by using cows. Again, the problem, which is too many cows, is pitched as the solution, which is cows heal the land. And again, you have video, and anybody with eyes in their head and an open mind, that's the necessary part, can look at the land that is grazed by cows. And unless you put, 10 cows on a few acres or 10 acres or something, and spread them out. I'm sorry?
If you've ever gone to a rescued farm animal sanctuary, you will understand that 2 cows will destroy your land.
Right. And it's funny. I don't know the number. That's another stat we could look up. But at some point, I'm always kind of schizophrenic. Part of me is I want to get the stats and go into the numbers like this guy just did in a distillation. And the other part of me is like, you don't need to. It's not that complicated. It's common sense. I mean, you drive through Point Reyes Seashore. You've driven through there so many times. You just train your video camera out the window, and you're showing miles and miles and miles in the summer of just desiccated, decimated, pulverized land with no vegetation on it. And it amazes me that you can show people that, and they'll drive by it, the average person, and you don't actually see it for what it is. You don't say, "Wow, look at that land. It's really beaten up." You just drive by it and say, "Hey, there's no condos here. This must be great." And that's the haze of public relations. It just fogs the mind in a way, as I was before I saw your film.
Also, when they talk about how little wildlife remains on the planet, but we talk about how much farmland there is for cattle, then you need to think about the fact that these farmers claim that their farmland is wildlife habitat. Okay, if that was true, we wouldn't be losing all of our wildlife. If, in fact, wildlife were allowed to live on that farmland, if it was a marriage between agriculture and wildlife, then it couldn't be true that all of our wildlife are almost gone. Now, the ranchers of Point Reyes might be the best living testimony that this is BS, because they actively campaign to get rid of wildlife. I mean, this is where it's supposed to be friendly.
So speaking of BS, we can go to the videotape when you're ready, Skylar. But I just realized, even when you say the word, this is what I love about working with you on this stuff and having someone say something, and I get to kind of pause a little bit and think. Farmland. For me, it's like, oh, farmland. It sounds nice. I'm going to have farmland. I mean, you could call Auschwitz. Sorry, I keep doing the Jewish jokes. Auschwitz, it's a farm. We put them to a camp. Oh, that sounds nice. Words are so. I'm just. The older I get, I'm in my 60s now. Words are just everything because it controls how people think, and we have automated responses to the words. So how about this?
You're saying that the government.
Hold on. I know you're queuing it up. Sorry, Skyward. I know what you're doing. Thank you. Instead of calling it farmland, where we put cows, we should call harmland.
It's so true. Farmland is a really nice word. Agriculture is vague enough that you're not thinking like, oh, I mean, how can you be mean to these people? They're creating food. They're feeding us.
Right.
There's a whole other side topic that they aren't. 90, well, I mean, I don't know what the percentage is. I did a video on it, but I don't remember. But like the amount of food that's wasted in the effort to make profits and go about this unnatural monoculture of harvest, use up all the earth's water, all the earth's soil, and then get it to the store. And somewhere along the way, half of that's lost at the store. If it doesn't look a certain way, it's thrown out. And if it's not sold by the end of the day or the end of the week, it's thrown out. And then the people who do buy it waste a massive amount of what they purchased. Doesn't even go in the body. So stop pretending that you're worried about people going hungry, because you're throwing away the food that they need to eat.
As you say, the most inefficient way to feed humans. And NC's to the point makes the comment, plus all the fresh water directly and indirectly to cows and feed. It's a huge amount of water, especially in the dry West in California. The ranchers in Marin County, cattle ranchers in Marin County, use more water than all residential use combined. So we're told, hey, shorter showers and don't wash your car in your driveway and don't wash your, water your lawn. I mean, which is fine. Let's not waste water. But that's where the attention is directed, rather than why are we using so much water, more than all residential use combined, to raise beef and dairy, unnecessary products that benefit just a few wealthy people. And the last comment is from Robin Ledford, where the West was done. Moo. That's great. Thank you.
I said this at the beginning of last week, and it applies again. It comes down to the marketing strategy is tell people what they want to hear that allows them to continue to do what they already wanted to do in the first place. That's what all this is.
And what they want to hear is what you've conditioned them to want to hear. I really see the public relations and advertising industries are huge in this. And anyway,
yeah, go ahead. You looked up the details on this. This is a Chinese-owned company, but when you go to the YouTube channel, they call it the California Insider, but it's just horrifyingly biased and campaigning against any, well, do you want to say anything else, or shall I click play?
Well, just for me, and I appreciate your queuing this stuff up, Skylar, as you need to do here. It's so tricky to show this stuff, because if we just step off the screen here and you show this for 2 or 3 minutes and someone trips into this podcast it's like, oh, we're giving a platform. So we got to keep our faces on the screen, and then I want to keep interrupting this guy. I don't want to build up a head of steam, because it's just falsehood after misrepresentation, after exaggeration, after omission, after intentional deception. You got all that? And it's just a stew of that. So
you said about 1 million synonyms for lie, but avoided saying lie. Is lie when litigation begins?
Well, that's a good question, my friend. And that's kind of sometimes our difference. We overlap in our taste. But when I say lie, oh, he's biased. When I say, well, that's not really representing the truth, I guess I'm speaking to an audience that comes into this cold and thinks, well, he's reasonable because he's only calling it misrepresentation. And then at a certain point, I go crazy and I'm like, it's just a lie. It just depends, again, back to words and their importance.
So anyway, we have an attorney who is about to misrepresent things knowingly. You can call that whatever you want in your own heads, ladies and gentlemen. Cleverly, I see the strategy of using a person of color to conduct the interview. That way you can't just attack, oh, whitey. Now we've recruited the other side to get our points across.
And before we jump in, we have a diverse. Sorry, guys, I keep doing that to you. Welcome to Working with Jack here, nonstop chatter. Just the diversity of our audience. So there's Speaking Circles International. Anybody with eyes in their head knows the phrase "from the fool on the hill." Now, who could that be? Referring to, Capitol Hill. And then on the other hand, Sledge. Well, California is socialist, as is their best friend China. So we have a diversity of political views here, but I think we can all agree on where we're going to go here. I will.
I'd like to know. I wanted to ask what year the word socialism started popping into Americans' heads,
and what the average person, the average American, thinks socialism even is.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Trump planted this shit in your heads, and you all ran with it. It wasn't a problem until somebody told you that it was a problem. But yeah, run with it.
Environmentalists to kind of push the ranchers out. Is that
100% they did, and they deny this. So they pretend, when I understand, I didn't read the transcript, but
you're saying that the government
That's already a lot.
You're saying that the government actually worked with the environmentalists to kind of push the ranchers out. Is that
100% they did, and they deny this. So they pretend, when I understand, I didn't read the transcript, but I understand the National Park reported this settlement to Congress, I think to the National Resources Committee, and in that report said, well, the ranchers have made a settlement with the Nature Conservancy and they've given up their rights to lease. We weren't a party to that, but now that the ranchers are leaving, we don't think we should continue ranching in the park, as though they were bystanders.
You're gonna let him talk that long, Jack?
I was being polite and not cutting you off, my friend. So thank you for pausing.
No. When this video, he said so much horse shit by now. You should have cut him off 7 times.
Fair enough. So
cutting him off is not cutting me off.
So here's the deal. There's what he says, and then here's what happened. There was a lawsuit. 3 environmental groups sued the Park Service about ranching practices, and those 3 different parties, environmental groups, the Park Service being sued, and then the ranchers, 3 different parties were in negotiations for 2 years and did not reach a settlement. So then I'm not sure who brought them in. There's a few different stories about who brought in the Nature Conservancy, checking with all 3 participants, the Park Service, the ranchers, and environmental groups, all agreed, yes, we're open to the Nature Conservancy entering our, what he calls secret, because that sounds nefarious, which are confidential negotiations, as are 90% or some huge percentage of all lawyerly negotiations are done privately behind the scenes, or nothing would get done. So these private negotiations, all 3 parties invited the Nature Conservancy to come in with the potential that they might bring them money, pay the ranchers to surrender their leases. They didn't own the property. They never owned the property since the 1960s or 70s. And then the ranchers all agreed, yes, we'll take this very generous payment. It's like 30 to 40 million, a number that's the one thing he says it's accurate, reported 30 to 40 million to pay the ranchers somewhere in the neighborhood. We're guessing, we don't know, probably a couple million or more per ranch family, per leaseholder, to just give up their lease. So that's the thing that happened, which everyone was aware of that was negotiating. And then it's announced to the public, we got this deal. And then he describes that just the way he did there, which is just making it sound like some nefarious, awful plot against the ranchers. Utter nonsense.
Something at the very beginning is worth thinking about when he said, the host said, the government worked with environmentalists to do this. Well, who do you mean exactly when you say the government?
And throughout the theme here, as we play more of this guy, but we're going to keep interrupting him so he doesn't build up a head of steamy BS. He keeps positioning, the ranchers as the victims. And that's the thing that makes you and me crazy, because we know from getting involved in this issue for years, the ranchers have had every benefit, every opportunity, every subsidy to the tune of millions of dollars a year. They're treated like royalty. And we environmentalists, as he calls us, fine, go crazy. Like, why does the Park Service not enforce regulations? If they have, water pollution, why don't they slap massive fines on these guys, or better yet, have them pay a full market value fair lease amount rather than want pennies on the dollar? Every benefit goes to them, and here he's positioning them as the victim. It's
By the
utter,
way,
utter nonsense. Thank you, NC.
as you said, they're being paid millions of dollars to leave again. The first time that they were paid to leave and didn't, it was the equivalent of modern day $350 million.
Correct. In total payments. So huge amount to all the ranchers. And that was a generous compensation. And then, of course, the ranchers had fought that tooth and nail and then finally succumbed, political pressures, as now the headwinds are blowing. Get you guys out of there, because the public doesn't want you there. Survey after survey has showed people don't go to Point Reyes to visit cows. They go there to visit wildlife. And cows are encroaching and harming, killing, actually, wildlife in the park, as well as water pollution.
And remember everyone, this is federal land. This is a federal park. So if for some reason they were like insinuating it was state government, the evil California government, this is federal land, and it isn't. So then Giacomini's basically talking about the exact same government that he's going to get to intervene on behalf of these ranchers. Just wrap your heads around the fact that these ranchers are so powerful. They go to the White House and say, this is what we want. And the White House says, okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as always, from the right, I think, Sledge, and of course you'll counter this, but the government is the enemy and to be bad-mouthed, except when it's doing your bidding. And maybe you could say that against both sides, but certainly true of the right. And anyway, let's give this guy, as Richard Charter of the Ocean Foundation taught me, let's give him some more rope.
And leaving aside what I said before, that since their own environmental study said ranching should continue, they had like an obligation to stick with the ranchers.
Okay, hold it.
I beat you.
I actually called up Jim Cota, our attorney, retired Park Service attorney, to say, he said this, what's your story on that? And he says, it's nonsense. The Park Service is allowed to change their mind. They did an EIS, an environmental impact study, which of course, the environmental groups, so I understand it, had to sue them to get them to do a study. And they, it gets complicated quickly, but they are under, the short story is they're under no obligation to continue ranching. It's always at the discretion of the Department of Interior and the Park Service to allow ranching to continue or not. And of course, the thing that makes us crazy is they're in violation of, they've got broken sewage pipes of human manure going onto the land. Their cows are defecating on the land, which washes into the waterways. We activists and environmentalists funded our own public studies, scientific ones with an engineer to prove that the water is being contaminated by cow manure. None of that stuff matters. They still keep the leases. And he's claiming that they're required to give them leases, and they're required to give them 20-year leases. And that's just complete, pulled out of his keister.
Well, it's worse than that. Everyone, please listen to this. Stop typing whatever you're typing while you're not listening to the show we're providing. Giacomini did something very deceptive there in making it sound like the environmental impact statement said ranching is supposed to stay there. The environmental impact statement condemned the ranchers, showed incredible amounts of problems, showed the benefits of removing ranching. The Park Service, who are in bed with the ranchers, ignored all of that. They simply went through the steps of the EIS, ignored it, and said, we're going with this management plan that gives ranchers everything that the ranchers asked for in a letter that the ranchers sent to the Park Service. I'm not making that up. I have the letter.
Right.
They sent a letter to the Park Service saying, we want all of these things. The Park Service ignored the environmental impact statement, came up with what they called a preferred management plan that was going to give the ranchers everything they wanted and do it for 20 years. Now, that is not what the EIS said, which is what Giacomini just made it sound like.
And thank you. Really well put and good clarification, Skylar. And that's what the three environmental groups sued about. which is you're not following your own EIS. And that was, I mean, because originally there was a suit in 2016, I think, and then the second suit by the same groups was brought in, I think, 2019. Is that right?
Say what?
The original suit brought by Western Watersheds, Center for Biological Diversity, and Resource and Renewal Institute was in 2016. And then they brought a second suit because the conclusions of the first suit were never put into effect.
Correct.
Meaning, yeah, and I think there's the second one begun in 2019. It doesn't even matter at this point.
Well, there's another point here for people to understand that the Park Service wouldn't do their own job. They wouldn't update their management plan. They wouldn't do assessments. All of this benefited the ranchers because the ranchers were getting away with murder, abusing the land all these years, and to do an updated management plan or an environmental impact statement, they know would do nothing but condemn the ranchers. So, hey, let's avoid it until we get sued to do our jobs.
So they made a recommendation.
Leaving aside, they abandoned that obligation to side with the environmental groups, then to later pretend like they were just bystanders in all this is not honest.
Who were the bystanders? Who's he accusing?
Not sure. I was reading Sludge's comment. I got distracted. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm glad you're paying attention to this video, Sludge.
They were not just bystanders. They were full-on participants. We've been trying to get these records through Freedom of Information Act requests, and so far they've refused to give us those records. We'll get them.
Oh, this is he wants access to these secret negotiations the Park Service is doing with I don't know. I guess it's with the Nature Conservancy. Is that what he's after there? I'm not even sure what he's referring to there.
Andrew, you're going to get yours before we get ours because we've been trying to get the Freedom of Information Act documents for a decade, and it's illegal for the Park Service not to provide those. It's illegal for the Park Service to delay as long as they have. Zero punishment.
Zero accountability. So that's perhaps one of the things we actually have in common with Giacomini, which is we're also trying to get FOIA's, Freedom of Information Act documents, and they're not forthcoming from the Park Service to either side of this. Is that correct?
It's just amazing that Giacomini is managing to make that what we've been suffering through to prove how bad the Park Service is and how much they've been helping the ranchers, make it sound like, oh, the Park Service is against the ranchers.
Right.
And again, I don't know how long it'll take for him to get his FOIA requests done, but it'll be faster than we get ours.
Yeah. Continue.
Eventually. But I think I sent you the one news article where a reporter has already started to get some of the emails that prove what I just said. They were taking a victory laps, the National Park Service, for this outcome. They celebrated it as a great achievement that they had helped make happen. So we know that they were full-on participants.
Isn't it interesting that the National Park Service, who worked for so long hand in hand with those ranchers and tolerated the ranchers violating their leases and damaging the land and killing wildlife
for decades,
are being portrayed, even if I left that part out, people understand that we're talking about the National Park Service and not ranch hands. These aren't private ranchers. And it's almost like it's expected that a national park should be helping ranching more than helping the park.
There's nothing almost, thank you. And there's nothing almost about that. He is acting as if they are obligated to work on behalf of the ranchers. They have a commitment to them when the whole thing is a farce. Ranching is an anti-environmental endeavor in the park. And if you drive out there and see for yourself, it's plain as the nose in your face.
Pull these up. You actually brought them with you. We just pulled them up and take a look.
I didn't find this, but the reporter did and posted it in his news story. But this is a pretty, this is the Deputy Solicitor for Parks and Wildlife in the Department of Interior, Sarah Krakoff.
You're really well prepared for this, Giacomini. So, Jack, this is small on our screen, but you chose to show this 8 minutes. Do you want to tell people what's important about what's on the screen there?
No, this actually isn't one of the important parts, because this is
Okay.
he's digging into documents behind the scenes saying this shows bias in the Park Service. That wasn't the key part of this thing. It's his going on and acting as if the other overview about all this is he's going into the machinations behind the scenes of the negotiated settlement with the Nature Conservancy. Nowhere in this discussion is the overarching issue that, as we were saying, the ranchers are polluting the seashore. There's no obligation to have ranching at the seashore. And he's acting like some right has been denied them or taken away from them. Just that whole, I'm just pulling out the macro is so absurd on the face of it. And he's getting into like, look at the backroom deal here, how they took this away from us. You're never supposed to have it in the first place. It's a privilege to be ranching there.
As us, and he's on the outside, and he's actually betraying ranchers that want this deal to go through. So it's interesting that he's attacking the Park Service and I guess environmentalists, but isn't he also attacking the ranchers? Because the ranchers participated in these secret negotiations, Giacomini. So you're saying that they were doing something bad. You know, they could have whistleblown at any time that they wanted to. They signed it. They said, you know what? We're fucked. This industry can't go on any longer. Millions of dollars again? Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, I also want to be mindful of time here.
Yeah.
This, by the way, this is an 8-minute clip or so from like the whole interview is like 45 or 50 minutes long. There's a lot of material here. And, you know, Skylar and I always talk before the show, how much do we want to do of what topic? So I'm not sure what comes next in this, whether it's some juicy bits of turd or whether we want to move on to
We can move on. I thought you had already selected important parts of this.
Just play another 60 seconds. I mean, I want to skip this part. It's picking on some communication showing the Park Service. Some Park Service person was, hey, we finally got the ranchers out. Well, I mean, yippee, kaye, you know, like, I mean, for me, it's the first time that he has some documentation that shows the Park Service isn't pro-rancher bias, which has been evident by giving them these sweetheart lease deals for years and ignoring all the violations. He then comes to us saying, this is absurd. Look, the Park Service said something bad about ranching, or that someone in the Park Service admitted that, hey, we're finally going to be rid of ranching. Gosh, I hope so. You and I are always arguing about whether the Park Service, the employees, want ranching in the park or not. I'm always defending them, saying they're caught in the middle, and you're saying it's inexcusable. I don't care that what they really think, it's what they do.
All right, well, let me say this. I mean, this has been going on for a long time. This has been in my life since 2018. And I've read a lot of the documents, and we've seen the Park Service bend over backwards to try and give lenience to the ranchers. And you know how the ranchers respond? Ungratefully and complaining even more. So the fact that some of the people in the Park Service do want the ranchers gone really isn't weird. It should be expected. But they have helped the ranchers to such an extent that I say a large percentage of them are indeed good, tight friends. Like Melanie Gunn, like the guy who goes out and shoots, what's his name? The guy who actually shoots the pregnant elk in the head.
Don't know that one.
They're wildlife ecologist.
You don't mean Dave Press, who's the wildlife biologist for the Park Service?
Yeah. Well, they changed his title as it fits him. All he did was like study how to expand ranch land, and then got a job at Point Reyes. Anyway, I think people will be more stunned by the documents that I can show than whatever he came up with, the actual violence ranchers expressed toward the Park Service staff. Actual violence. Now, this is behavior you find from people who have become engrossed in their own power and have gotten to do whatever they want to for so long that they begin to not really believe that there are consequences. And we have yet to see if there are any. I mean, after everything bad that they've done, them losing is being paid millions of dollars.
Very good. Exactly. I was going to say that point too. It's like, oh, the poor ranchers. Like, once again, people have been hearing this like a broken record, but Albert Strauss is on a publicity tour saying, oh, poor us. These ranchers are voluntarily signed an agreement to be paid millions of dollars to just surrender their current leases, which, if this deal is scuttled, then the lawsuit, excuse me, goes back into effect, and they could lose the deal and be kicked out of the park with no money. And with all the attention being paid on to this issue, which is that the ranchers are polluting the park, there's a good chance they would lose the lawsuit and lose their leases and not get any money at all. Hence, they're taking a deal. It's a really good deal for them.
Keep talking. I'm going to queue up. We're going to finish Hooves on the Ground today.
Sure. So Skyward's got this wonderful PR film sponsored by Audubon Society, God help us, which shows you where they are these days. Hooves on the ground, wings in the sky. Gosh, as I say that, I want to be part of that, whatever that industry is. Oh, wait, it's cattle ranching. The hooves on the ground is cows, and the wings in the sky are probably crows. They're feeding on feed, and everything else has been shot out of the sky or driven off.
And Sledge, thank you for the suggestion. I should be able to search it by what you've typed there, unless you have the direct link that you want to type. So we were pretty far. We were right around, I think, how much further past Point Blue, the Point Blue woman in a field of slender oats and other non-native annual European grasses.
Take it for 60 seconds, Skylar. I got to do something at the door. I'll be right back.
All right.
Sorry, how professional.
I'm gonna pause for a little bit because there's enough on this screen alone. You see this all over California. I'm guessing all over the United States. But this is romance. Like, this is a romantic vision in the minds of people. Well, it's barbed wire. It's habitat fragmentation. It's entanglement of living creatures. It's built to prevent some creatures from escaping. And intertwined in that barbed wire are non-native, Jack doesn't like the word, but it's accurate, invasive species of agricultural plants brought over from Europe. In the background, thank God, we still have some trees remaining. But isn't it interesting that this is an environmental film, or at least it's pushing the idea of how good this is for wildlife, and this is still used as a romantic image? I was talking about the indoctrination of the ranching romance, and that this, which is actually a horrifying image, is being used to sway the hearts of people in a pro wildlife.
You mean the barbed wire fence?
One of the biggest
And the invasive plants that are all intertwined in it.
ways we interact with nature and with the planet is through the food that we eat. How we grow our food, how we create our food matters.
Go back to the short that I showed at the beginning. How we grow it in the most inefficient manner possible, using 50% of the planet for a fifth of the calories produced.
This is our public service, folks. Again and again and again. We were taught, I was raised on cowboy films with, now it's Kevin Costner or whomever, but whatever cowboys, like out there on the range, doing the good work of moving the cattle to make wonderful food. Arguably, I was going to say arguably 50 or 100 years ago, you could say it wasn't so bad. That's not actually true. It was terrible to begin with. It's just expanded to the point where this is now this monstrous, destructive force on the land. And as you say, we're looking at, grasses that are brought in from Europe that now burn and don't hold carbon year round. And those wooden post barbed wire fences affect wildlife migrations and define private property. Well, that's the least of it, but it's just
I have a really enlightening interview with George Werthner, who told me, I was like, what caused all the birds and other wildlife mostly to disappear? Hunting, pesticides? He was like, no, fencing, habitat fragmentation, preventing natural processes. I was like, wow. And we don't even think about that.
Yep.
In fact, it's shown in a pro wildlife video here.
I've been out mending fences for so long now. The eagle's romanticization of putting up fences, the thing that destroys habitat and wildlife.
I'm not sure why it's not playing. Oh, come on.
So this is, again, folks, Hooves on the Ground, Wings in the Sky by the Audubon Society. And it's, I don't even know, if Skyward dug this thing up, 40-minute or whatever, a 30-minute puff piece selling, the hardworking.
Amazing ecosystems.
You never know when it's going to start working again.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, I invite anyone even after this, to tell me when you see one species of wildlife appear on the screen in the entire thing.
Paula puts it, it's funny, the comment for it, masterclass in gaslighting. I would, it's true, I call it masterclass in BS. Look at the foreground, by the way, just so this image you got frozen here, you know, it's like a lot of dirt with some patches of European grass, and in the background, that's what a lot of that is. Now, of course, it's more beat up here where these guys are going in and out of their paddock, but all of that stuff, even people could look at this, and if we weren't saying a commentary right now, it's like, oh, cows out in the country, how nice. Right. Not realizing that is a destroyed, degraded landscape because of the cows.
Good point, Jack, because I have to remind myself that I also looked at that at one time. I was like, oh, look, open space. Like, that's what we're reduced to. It's like cities, urban sprawl, or ranch land. And that's as close as we come to nature now. So we call that nature, which is incorrect. But I get it. I get how it happened to our brains.
We no longer have the vast herd.
Again,
wow,
that's like one of the.
God, that's great. Actually, it's sort of like, oh, isn't this nice? So the filmmaker, who, you know, it doesn't know this stuff, I assume, said, let me show some greenery in the foreground to create depth of field for the frame, and a little bit of sky on top, and nicely composed. But like, what are you showing exactly?
And the fact that they don't know, and that they didn't consult with anyone, or maybe the people that live there don't even know. But that is a Italian thistle, and it is nasty. I mean, it might be my number one enemy on a daily basis that I go out and battle against. I mean, Jack, that shit hurts from bottom to top, and it dominates the land. It comes through after the slender oats and the ripgut brome have finished their thing.
Does a thistle come in through the seed brought in the hay to feed the cows? Is that how it got there, or is that a species that's been here a while? Do you know?
Well, it's been here for quite some time.
Italian thistle, I guess. There you go. It's probably from Italy. Yeah, it's a type of thistle, exactly, Sledge. That's what we're trying to figure out. But anyway, it's just
we've got a lot of. We've got bull thistle, yellow star thistle, now red star thistles being introduced by goats into areas that I never saw it before, and none of it is supposed to be here. And before anyone says, I understand that some thistle is good. I understand that some thistle is good. I understand that there are native thistles in California. Native Americans made soup out of some thistle plants. But also another sad thing, you asked about how it spreads, Jack. When all the native flowering plants are gone, I see bees come up to these because they don't have anything else, no other flowers to find. So we end up having our own pollinators participating in the problem, and we haven't left them any option.
And elk and all the other ungulates, the herding animals that occurred in California and that shaped these amazing ecosystems. It's not.
I mean, when the script says shaped these amazing ecosystems, and you can't fucking show something better than cattle drinking out of a trough, and on the left you see what cattle really do to the ground. I mean, that barren shit on the left there is how Point Reyes looks where it ranches.
And to underline what you just said, which is key, look at this frame. Look at the right side where there's a fence preventing the cows from getting out of that paddock. And it's like, oh, there's some plants, there's some shrubs that grow because they haven't been trampled by the cows. But where the cows go, degradation follows.
There's gold in them bare hills, reflections from the sun.
The golden rolling hills of Northern California destroyed by cattle, like in most of Sonoma County.
When I moved here and I saw all the yellow hills rolling, and I thought that's the way it was supposed to be. I had no idea. California has been dominated by non-native species for so long that most of us don't know of a California that didn't look that way.
Not at our discretion that livestock operations.
Look at that, people.
Look at what cattle do. The fence.
It is fundamental to our long-term health.
He means economic health, I think is what he means. What is fundamental to their health exactly? Having cows eat the grass down to dirt?
It sounded good, right? It was a bunch of nice shiny words.
nice music, good looking guy. You know, there he is. I can respect him.
It's the second time you've mentioned his looks. Look at me with my boots and driving a truck on the land. That's connection, babe. That's connection.
You know, the difference
What's he doing here?
He's got a
between me and
portable office, is driving his vehicle out into the field to help it regenerate. By the way, Sledge says, this is a trenchant comment. This is very serious, but you two are bringing a great laugh to it. My understanding is you're saying you're okay with that. For me, it's how I survive this stuff, Sledge. I mean, if I were just to focus on how horrible this stuff is that we focus on a lot, Skylar and I, it would just depress the hell out of me. I have to laugh. That's my way to survive.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad you appreciate that, Sledge. And I actually presented this idea to Jack because I've tried editing these on my own and then putting them out. And, you know, you can imagine, like, I'm like smashing holes in the wall before. So it's at least a little bit of humor here helps me get through it.
my grandfather, who
Of course, they got to mention the grandfather and the grandfather before them. And what the don't understand is that you're basically admitting that none of you knew what to do from the very beginning.
And Paula writes very wisely, fundamental to our entitlement to exploit the land for profit. The land of the new world, America, is here for us to use and degrade. And the natives will be killed or pushed off. And the wild animals that were here in America in the new world will be killed or pushed off. We are entitled.
Speaking of the wildlife, anytime anyone sees something, please let me know. Thank you, Robin. Everybody.
Go ahead, read it. Read Robin's comment. It's great. I just read that.
Is this a compensation comment?
Yeah. Everybody knows what they say about men who drive big trucks.
preceded me is not ethics. It's information.
What a bunch of nothing that came out of his mouth.
It's incumbent upon me to use the information we have to get better and better effects.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's incumbent upon me to use the information that we have to get better. I think you said results.
I think he said facts.
Okay, and I'm impressed that he knows the word. I like that he used the word incumbent. It tells me he's intelligent and what he's saying must be true.
Right.
Sledge says, get a punching bag with a cow on it. No, Sledge, no, the poor cow is very sweet. It's get a punching bag with the cow rancher on it, buddy.
And I point out in Point Reyes because it sounds like I'm targeting the cows. Cows are very sweet. I don't have ill feelings toward cattle. They are being used in a destructive manner by human beings.
And that just stands to reason.
Look at the gold. Like, see, they filmed this part at a different time of year.
It's beautiful.
And you already see, but yeah, it's beautiful until it burns, right?
Yep. So we have to run.
Why wouldn't we?
And by the way, Jack, I can't wait to show you the results of my hand pulling of weeds and replacing with flowers. If you I understand that people can think that a golden field is beautiful. It doesn't hold a candle to what it was supposed to look like.
In the past, you would have known your local farmer, your local.
How long are we talking?
Oh, this is, look at this. These guys having a picnic out on their lawn. It's just, God, I want to.
They eat together. Let's assume that they prayed together, so we can't really criticize them. That's family. It's
local rancher. You would have known where your food comes from. But when you see the Audubon certification in the supermarket, you know that Audubon is out on the ground working with these ranchers.
You heard it. You heard it from ladies and gentlemen, Audubon, with someone on the screen from Audubon telling you that they fully approve killing the planet.
Meaning this is full on. This is what the Audubon Society now does. They have people who love the land so much, they walk in slow motion to fully appreciate it. Drinking in the beauty of the grasses that they will claim are now a fire hazard. So now we have to run more cattle on the land to beat down the grass. That is the result of running cattle in the first place.
So Robin is pointing out white shirts, and I'm not sure I fully understand the meaning.
I think there's, I don't either. It's you call somebody white shirts. I think that, oh, that's right. She's guessing, meaning like, Middle class management, upper middle class, not actually the guys working the land, because you don't wear a white shirt if you're a ranch hand. That's my guess. If there's something else, Robin, tell us briefly in a chat, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, I always joke it must have been a fun treat for them to go out and actually see their land for the filming of this. hide all the Mexicans.
Yeah, exactly. You know, these 4 folks aren't doing all the work. Anyway, run some more TV. I want to see this. This is great.
Yeah, and I'm going to quiz people. I want people to start learning. Can anyone tell me what plant you're seeing? I know that they're silhouetted, but when you get to know this plant, that's plenty. Jack, do you know?
The grass in the foreground, you mean?
It's pretty much the only plant you can see in this shot.
I don't know what type of grass it is. No.
It is the slender oats, and they will kill your dogs.
Hand in hand to keep the land an open space and provide you as a consumer transparency that the
Jesus Christ.
You, the consumer, have transparency. You know, sign me up. As a consumer, I want transparency.
You know what I hear over and over and over in these things is basically convincing you that they're doing you a favor by continuing to make money the way that they already wanted to make money. And by Audubon, like bringing in donations to these people or putting their thing on it, it reminds me of the conservation easements and Measure A in Marin County, where people give millions of dollars and it goes to multimillionaire ranchers to keep ranching.
Without the public contributions in many different ways to ranching in Marin County, those would be completely unprofitable businesses and they would fold. They are propped up. It's the only word I have for it is welfare ranching. Although I don't disparage welfare for poor people, I do disparage corporate welfare, which is what this is. Go for it.
I'm just catching up with some of these comments.
Sure.
Sagebrush is next to grow there. Do you mean is supposed to grow there? Because that's what should be there. And you know, Audubon will come out with caring about the sage grouse. Well, I haven't seen one, and I haven't seen any sagebrush in this entire video.
The food that you're buying is climate friendly, bird friendly, that there's no antibiotics, no feedlots, and you can feel good about your purchase and know that you are having a role in.
By the way, did that not look like a feedlot earlier?
Well, you know what? This is another big pushback now, and we heard this recently when we did our talk at the Marin Marin Coalition. I won't even name her, but it was a rancher who runs 1,000 cows, a dairy farm up in Petaluma. And her point that she kept coming back to was, you know, it's pitching the good small farms. And of course, there's no definition for small because she has 1,000 cows, which technically by EPA rules makes it a CAFO or USDA rules. But it's pitching the way they try to split the movement and fool the public is factory farms are bad and the small farms are good. And that's complete nonsense because in many ways, small farms do more damage to more land and they're still horrifically cruel, marginally a little bit better to have cows walking out in this field, but then they do more environmental damage. And
we'll go back to the short that I showed at the beginning of the film. We're at 50% of habitable land being used for agriculture, and that's with
No, not agriculture. Don't say agriculture, man. Careful. I mean, you got to parse it. I'll be on you about that. You say agriculture. That's the umbrella hiding word. Say how much of it is cattle. That's what matters.
Okay.
Right.
Right. It is. It's cow agriculture being used to grow food for cows. But my point is that that's including all the factory farms, and there's a lot of them. But that's including the factory farms right now. Like factory farms aren't going to disappear because you're giving people like Morris Grass-Fed even more land.
I watched it. It was painful. It was the level of ignorance was colossal. It was sort of like watching this film without being able to comment on it because it was a recording. But it just again and again and again, you're going to have people from all different angles, including people who want to keep eating the meat and dairy, say, well, it's the factory farm that's the problem. And it's not. Factory farms are actually more efficient. Of course, they're horrific. And I mean when I say
you're going to get in trouble there. You better.
No. Please bring it on, man. We'll do a freaking show on it. Animal factory farms are in many ways, not always, in some ways they're worse, but excuse me, in some ways they are worse than this big farm here because they jam more animals in. So you could argue they're being more abusive to more animals. That's what the industry wants to push on, but that's their way of selling this alternative. The small family-owned farm, it's better. And no, it's not, because it takes up more land and produces more methane, the thing that these folks never talk about. They always talk about soil carbon sequestration. They don't talk about methane because that's the one that doesn't go away.
Remind me to come back to this. Let's finish it because we're at the end, and then we can just talk freely.
Conservation.
Shame on you, Audubon.
Wow, read that. Grazed on Audubon certified bird-friendly land.
That you couldn't show us one bird.
Because oh my God. They only showed trees other than the individual, 3 trees in that entire landscape there of a few acres. They had a shot where the camera was pointing up to underneath some live oak trees. That's nowhere near where the cattle are because the cattle would have beaten down all the grass around them.
So
what is
does anyone remember I pointed out that they didn't get any actual shots of birds and they had to bring in photographs?
Right.
So here are the credits to the photographers that they had to go and get the rights to use the photos of because they couldn't get an image of any of these animals on that land.
Wow. Thank you, Skyward. Great observation. I mean, as a filmmaker, you know this, but like, this is proof that these birds weren't on the property doing their weeks of filming or days of filming, whatever they did. There's admitting like, oh yeah, we brought this stuff in, and we're implying by putting it in the film that these birds were actually on site. They weren't.
And let's be clear, I'm not saying that there aren't any birds there at all, but it's not a paradise and it's not a thriving habitat. It's animals trying to get by with what is left, which is not native habitat, but it's also not a factory farm and it's not a high rise. I don't know, Jack, I did a video that showed that there are actually more trees inside of Petaluma than there are in all the ranch land surrounding Petaluma. So sometimes cities are actually friendlier than ranch land in a lot of ways.
Would you put us back, unless there's more to show here, put us back on the screen?
One last thing to show.
Yeah, go for it.
There it is on the left.
Audubon Conservation Ranching Initiative is funded through the generous support of the Wildlife Conservation Board, the Volgano Foundation, I don't know that one, Marga and Peter Levy Foundation, and individual donors and supporters. Okay, and
so that was the most important part, is that the Wildlife Conservation Board is behind this. I mean, with friends like this, who needs enemies, right?
Wow. Yeah, and it's funny. You mentioned more trees in some cities than in the surrounding ranch lands. I'm sure that's true, but for me, that's a whole really, that one's hard for me to joke about. Just the war on trees and the war on forests we're currently waging now in so many ways. I mean, I was a tree and forest advocate and still am before I became aware of animal issues and animal abuse. And we don't value trees. We don't value trees for all that they do in so many ways. I mean, carbon sequestration and beauty and wildlife habitat and water filtration, oxygen production, obviously, shade making, earth cooling. We should be, adoring and worshiping trees and planting them everywhere, far and wide, not just the ornamentals we put in our cities and then cut down when the roots get too big and, God forbid, push up the sidewalk. But and agricultural lands are destroyed, and now even forests are being, managed. It's just something I'm working on currently in a lot of different ways, even doing a demonstration in a few weeks if people want to get involved and actually show up in person in a forest to protect it from being attacked by industrial machine tools in the name of management, more management, cutting down trees and shredding literally thousands and thousands of shrubs, destroying forests because now they're considered another enemy that must be tamed by man.
Think green covers.
I guess cover plant. I don't know either. I'd be guessing. We need a little more than that.
Oh,
Corinne says belt buckles. The West is won by cool guys with good belt buckles. Yeah. And boots. And
I'll start putting my cowboy hat on so that no one can question me. And the American.
At the right time, I want to have you run we should run it more than once because it's a mini masterpiece, but man, it's just vicious. And you know what I'm talking about.
Biggest fan.
I'm the biggest fan of that film, man. And I call it cowboy because it's you as a cowboy just on the land talking as a rancher. It is.
Sledge, I don't know if you're serious about trying to correct me, or if you're making a joke in good spirit along with it, yes, you're correct. There is a water trough there. And I guarantee that they have a feedlot that looks as trampled and degraded as that water lot. But
by the way, Marty going back says, what are the 4% of a million species that are not humans and they're associated with livestock? So that 4% by biomass, by body weight, is all wild terrestrial mammals, as I understand it, Marty.
That aren't livestock.
Right. And 36% of the biomass terrestrial. This is on land, not the oceans. 36% of humans, and that leaves 60%. I have memorized that little factoid. And 60% is livestock, with obviously the majority of that being cows, because they're so much bigger, heavier animals.
The first time I quoted that, people were calling me out like, "Oh, where's, you need to provide your documentation." And this was back when I was on Instagram.
Fair enough.
Of course, I do. But really, you want a peer published paper along with the Instagram post? But here's the thing, Jack. It's not hard to find. This isn't one or two crazy people that have put this out. This is just the way it is. So instead of simply saying, "Oh, prove the thing that I don't want to believe," you could go and look for yourselves and have a bad wake up call.
Yeah, it's so tricky these days. I am so tortured about this issue about offering proof and scientific studies, and it's not even a simple answer other than to say both, which is look at scientific studies, see that they're peer reviewed rather than just one cherry picked study out of UC Davis, the agriculture, which is to say pro cattle school that's going to fund papers to get positive results showing the cattle industry is wonderful, or we've cut methane emissions by 10% by feeding them by going to the oceans and raking the ocean for seaweed, and we've cut methane emissions from cow digestion 4 or 5 or 10%. So isn't this wonderful? But then get a peer-reviewed study saying, oh yeah, by the way, methane emissions overall are a horrific contributor to the climate crisis from cattle industry.
Robin, what do you mean? What is running downhill? I'm not sure if I get the meaning.
I live in the foothills of the Cherokee National Forest, and I'll see what runs downhill. I'm guessing maybe manure from cows at Cherokee National. I don't know. I don't know what the...
Yeah, that's why I'm asking for clarification.
Yeah, ditto.
That is in Tennessee, right?
So we are at 10:04, so we're a little hour over our show.
Yeah.
God knows you and I can go on for another solid hour here without hesitation, but I guess we should run it down.
What Jack and I were wondering? How many people could stand us 2 days a week? So you can put it in the comments. I'm not saying when it's going to happen.
So great question, actually. In fact, I know I had another one to that. So one is kind of folks who are watching, do you want more of this of us? And then the other is, I like this format very much, of where you show some clips and we pause it, criticize. It's sort of like our guest is the film, and the people we bring, not the people, this crazy ass, a lot of it's PR BS.
That's great, because there's so much propaganda out there that I would love to break down. I'm happy with that format, and we still have to get to point raise, and we still have to get to other things. So,
but anyway, if people say, "Oh yeah, I like this format. What you're doing is good," or if you have strong objections, like, "No, you're cutting the clips too short," which is how much do you show of some bullshit before you say it's BS? But anyway, if you have comments about that, the format, please comment.
Robin, if you're saying yup, that it's cattle in the forest running downhill, I'm so sorry to hear that. Anyway, everyone, I will post links to what we showed here today in the description, so you can go and look for yourselves, including that wonderful short. Yeah, actually, maybe you shouldn't go watch Giacomini until you're there for us to break it down.
Yeah. I honestly,
I don't deceptive that mofo.
You can't share. I don't choose to share a link to his interview without any kind of a buffer, a commentary, because you can't believe that someone this educated, an attorney, could lie this. Excuse me, did I say lie? I meant to say
Oopsie.
Represent misinformation so effectively and endlessly. It's a stream of it. Hence the manure truck spreading manure.
NC says, if you stream it, we will come. What's
very
clovers?
sweet.
No farmlands. So what's running downhill then? Now I'm getting more confused. Anyway, you can tell us in the...
And so please, folks, by the way, just a little due diligence, if you would here, or housekeeping, as they call it in the streams on podcasting, please share this, the link to this, so other people can watch it. Make a comment if you would, just a little comment saying great show or terrible show or anything. And the algorithm helps this get pushed out by the almighty algorithm, so more people see it on YouTube. It's on Skyward Thomas's Watching Humans channel and my treespiritproject.com/podcasts page, where I list all these same as Skyward has them lined up. So we do want more people to watch this content, and it's building an audience, which is a whole separate matter from just generating this content, which we enjoy doing. Thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate it.